Don't any of you have the guts to play for blood?
I'm your huckleberry. That's just my game.
Welcome back to MythVision Podcast. I'm your host, Derek Lambert. I'm joined today by the legend, Dr. James D. Tabor. Welcome back to MythVision.
Good to see you, Derek. We're going to have fun. It's a serious subject, but, we're going to be relaxed and play around a little bit like we always do, but dig into some very interesting topics.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. By the way, just in case anybody wants to go subscribe to Dr. Tabor's YouTube channel. He's done a video that actually covers this in probably more depth than we're going to be getting into today for time and brevity's sake, but also your comments, super chats will hopefully get to the end. Another thing, go check out his blog. Links are in the description. You go and sign up. It's free. Become part of the email list. You'll get updates. You'll get new articles, blogs, tours that he has coming up, new events, you name it. And then also mini books. He's got a book right now that's coming out or is out on Mary. Can you comment on that real quick?
Yeah, it's not out yet. This is you see the image down there. It actually comes out September 30th, but you can pre-order it. So, and you've heard of the quest for the historical Jesus, Derek? This is the quest for the historical Mary. And you might ask, and you should ask, how would you do that? Do we have any data really? Well, tell you, I've been working. Usually I write a book every year, every 2 years, 3 years at the most. This one took 7 years. Throw in some COVID period, that delays publishing. But anyway, it's a great book. I'm trying to restore Mary as a Jewish woman of her time living in those days, not a Catholic saint, a nun, or the Mother of God. So let's call it, for believers in Mary, we could say the earthly Mary, not the heavenly Mother of God, which I talk about how you go from one to the other. But I don't know of many books on Mary, but this is one. And as far as I know, this is maybe the first historically critical study of Mary, finding Mary, the real Mary. So
everybody go check it out. Amazon. Also, he has a course, Creating Jesus. We'll probably pause to give you a quick little update throughout this stream and definitely at the end to go sign up for the Creating Jesus course on why Mark's gospel was forgotten. This is relevant to the subject matter today. I want to say Dr. Tabor is an expert here. He has done archaeological digs all throughout the Levant. I mean, I've gone on tours with him and seen the dig sites as well. We've done a lot of work together. I've done plenty of interviews with you previously. And this course is relevant to what we're going to discuss today. In fact, relating to Mark's gospel and the Shroud of Turin. So let's turn to you for a second before we get to slides, if you have anything to say. And that is the Shroud of Turin a first century relic that houses the face of Jesus and actually is an empirical piece of data proving the resurrection of Jesus from the dead? Millions of people believe that it is. And I know that that's a sensitive subject for many, but we here at MythVision like to ask the tough questions and dive into things critically. So what is your thoughts on this? And let's dive in.
Yeah, and then we'll get started with some slides. I've got quite a few slides, a lot to cover here. So sit back and, as we say, buckle your seatbelts, get ready. Yeah, why would I do this in the first place? I started realizing that archaeology and many of the things I work on, particularly material evidence for crucifixion and Jewish burial, and even shrouds, as you're going to see, I know a little bit about. I know a little bit about carbon-14 dating and DNA and so forth because I've actually been involved in those things. And I decided to do this presentation simply because I was noticing on YouTube videos pitching this idea that it's the very cloth that covered Jesus. Now, some people would just consider that laughable, like, oh, goodness, who could think that? But there are shroud studies like you wouldn't believe, hundreds of thousands of papers, and in terms of even peer-reviewed, several hundred that have been published, trying to give scientific evidence that this can be traced back. And we'll talk about all those claims. And I'm not convinced. And I'm not going to name names here, but some of the people some of them are academics. They're evangelical scholars. They're academics. I work with some of them. A couple of them I've even excavated with in Israel. And they are now saying, not only is it the shroud that covers Jesus' body, but it absolutely proves beyond any doubt, the physical resuscitation or resurrection of Jesus once he was put in the tomb. And I think that's incorrect. I don't think it even remotely does that. I'm giving you my conclusion before I start. So let's get into it.
Okay.
Now, some of you may not have heard much about the shroud. Go ahead and
close out mine. There we go.
Slides up. Yep. And then I can advance them. Okay. You have to do something, I think, Derek.
I see it on screen, so I got the turn. I can move slides around.
But I don't see it, so I can't
see
it.
You don't?
Nope.
Huh. Does everybody else? Let's see.
No, I don't see it. I just see us to the side, but no. There we go. Now I see it.
Okay, you can see it. Cool. I just backed it out and brought it back in.
Okay. So here we go. The Turin shroud, getting the facts straight. I like that idea of trying to get the facts straight. Derek knows on my tours, I usually rate evidence on 3 levels. What do we really know with almost no doubt? What can we maybe responsibly speculate about from those facts that we know? And thirdly, if you need to imagine, what could we imagine? Not prove, but just imagine. And I like to do that with any kind of textual or archaeological evidence. So that's what I mean by getting the facts straight. Let's try to see what the facts are. Now, when you look at this image that's on the screen, there is no question that it is so intriguing. What is this? Now, we're going to talk about some of the features here. What are these things, and what are all these things that aren't the image? But just look at that face. Concentrate on that face, and you see the body, and you see the hands crossed. These are different marks of whipping on the back, the whole body, the crown of thorns, the nail here through the wrist, which is a big point that they make, people defending the authenticity of the shroud. And when I say authenticity, I won't keep saying this. I mean the 1st century dating and identification with the corpse of Jesus, proving he was raised. So it's not just that the shroud covered him. It's this image was made supernaturally by billions and billions of units of ultraviolet light or other kinds of some sort of electromagnetic cosmic force that printed this on the shroud. That's the thesis. Okay. And so we'll get started. That's all I'll say about it right now. Now, I have 3 preliminary observations. First of all, just to be respectful, and I mean this sincerely, this is a deeply emotional topic for countless Christian believers. I think my academic colleagues should know better, that work in archaeology and history and texts, but lots of people simply believe it, and many would even call it a 5th gospel. So if you're a modern doubting Thomas, you need to study the shroud, they would say. And yes, put your finger in the hole, so to speak, symbolically, and look at that shroud. And you, like Thomas, will say, "My Lord and my God," and bow down. That's sort of the idea. And it means so much to so many people. So I want to respect that. But I think these people should be, and I hope are, honest. And if it's not that, I think they would want to know. And I don't think it is. So let me present the case. Number 2, this is a thesis, I just want to say really quickly, we're going to go into it, but the reason I'm doing this is you could start refuting this in your head. You know how that works, Derek? As soon as you hear something, well, we know that's not true because this and that. So
Yeah.
let me just tell you my thesis, and I've defended this on many YouTube channels with you, Derek. We've done several programs, and you've done with Miller and with Robin Faith Walsh and others. The earliest faith in Jesus's resurrection was not that of a resuscitated corpse. Now, everybody thinks that. If you don't get the body to walk out of the tomb, there's no resurrection. Of course, people think that, right? But guess what? Our two earliest sources, Mark and Paul, that's why we mentioned Mark, do not actually say that. I'm not going to go into the details of Mark, but remember, the women who come to the tomb are told, he's not here, he's been lifted up, right? He's been lifted up. I know it's translated, raised, but he's been lifted up. And Paul, who is the only first person witness to the resurrection. Now, there's somebody that says, I saw Jesus. Not like he saw Jesus. All the Gospels are third person. We don't know for sure even who wrote them. But what does Paul say when you say, well, what did he look like? He says, I can't tell you what the resurrection body, I can just look like, I can describe it as glorious and powerful and immortal, but God creates the body that's suited to that new life in the other world. And he actually calls the body old clothes. This is in 2 Corinthians right here. He says the body's like clothing, old clothing. So you don't need the old clothing. It rots and goes back to the dust, right? Dust you are, to dust you will return. He quotes that in 1 Corinthians 15. The first man, Adam, was dust, but the new Adam is a life-giving spirit. So he talks about death as the naked state. You don't have a body. And then you're reclothed with this immortal body. So I just want to say that so that you know when I'm arguing through, I'm not actually even arguing against faith in Jesus' resurrection. Whether you believe it or I believe it or Derek believes it is another question. But keep that in mind, because this does not fit this. You see the point? The best verse for that, Derek, is Revelation 20:13. The sea, the ocean, gave up all the dead in it. Are we talking about finding physical bodies and body parts? The sea gave up the dead, and the dead stand before God at the judgment. And thirdly, caveats, right? The tomb in which Jesus was first placed was not that of Joseph of Arimathea. Everybody's going to be, what? What does Tabor come up with here? Everybody knows. Who doesn't know? What scholar doesn't say it was the tomb of Joseph of Arimathea, according to all our accounts? Well, I don't think our accounts say that. So I'm not going to expound it now. Now, if you say, well, I've never heard those two things, I gave you a short URL. You don't even have to put the caps in. JamesTabor.com/Jesus Resurrection video, where I explain that in great detail. And JamesTabor.com Jesus Resurrection article. And the article is on my blog. It's quite long, and it goes through every passage about the tomb, its discovery, the redaction of the different accounts from Mark all the way down to the Gospel of Peter. Okay. So that's just to get us started. We're not to the shroud yet. Now, what is syndonology? Is it a medical term? Is it a scientific term? Is it according to shroud advocates, it's a field of study. Now, syndon, I put it in Greek here. It's easy to read. If you don't know Greek, you can kind of figure that out from English. Syndon is the Greek word for shroud, the shroud that Joseph of Arimathea buys, right? And wraps Jesus. He takes him down from the cross, according to Mark, and wraps him in a syndon. Usually refers to a linen cloth. It could refer to other fabric like cotton, but most often linen. And this Mark does say it's a linen cloth. So what would be syndonology? How could you have a field of study, of academic study called shroud study? Well, it doesn't mean just shroud study. It means Turin shroud study. This has become an entire industry or discipline. So Joe Marino is one of the active advocates of the authenticity of the shroud. So when I say authenticity, everybody understand. I'm not going to keep repeating. First century dating, covered Jesus, proves resurrection. That's what most of the advocates believe. I found over 100 scientific papers, now thousands of other papers. If you go to academia.edu, I dare you to type in Turin shroud. I mean, you're going to get, I think it's 3,000 articles, but I'm talking about peer-reviewed that were published in journals where the author had to get readers to say, yes, this is worthwhile and this should be published and so forth. 70 of the 100, this is approximate, are pro-authenticity, the way I've defined authenticity. 20 say it's a medieval relic. It was made in the 14th century, around 1355, when it first appeared, maybe before that because it had to be made. And about 10 are neutral. So what Joe does, and he thinks this is really impressive, look at all the fields of scientific study that have concluded that it's authentic. This is used to say it's the most studied artifact or even object on the planet. And the majority by far have said it's authentic, the way I've defined it. Now, I joked in my longer presentation that I'm not even sure what some of these are. Derek, do you see some that you can't identify? This is a Word document. So Word did not know what metallurgy is.
I was literally looking at that one.
There we go. And I'm not making fun of it. I'm just saying the idea is like, if all this scientific focus had been put on anything else, we could get to the truth, but not with the shroud. It is so mysterious. It's so unexplainable. There's only one explanation. It was produced by the resurrection of Jesus of Nazareth. So we have three parts. Part one is archaeological and textual evidence for what? Not the shroud, but Jewish burial and shrouds in the first century, okay? It just so happens in the summer of 2000, along with my colleague Shimon Gibson, that's me, Tabor, my students, we stumbled across, literally, hiking in the Hinnom Valley one night. We'd been digging at Suba, which is a site associated with John the Baptist west of Jerusalem, all week. And it was in July, as I recall, hot. And Shimon said, Tabor, let's take the students in. They worked hard. It's a Friday afternoon. We'll get some pizza in Jerusalem and relax and have a few drinks. But I want to take you hiking in the Hinnom Valley. That's that valley just south of Jerusalem, Hell Valley. You've been there, Derek. You've been to Hell and walked in it. We drove down in it, remember?
Yeah, we even did a recording at night.
Yeah. It was the ancient garbage dump of Jerusalem. But along the southern ridge, there are all these first century tombs, and many of them are still sealed. They've never been opened. And as we hiked along, lo and behold, we come across a freshly robbed tomb. It had clearly been robbed the night before. This is Friday afternoon. And Shimon used to work for the Israel Antiquities Authority, so he called Boaz Zissou, who's really the tomb expert who's part of the Israel Antiquities Authority and all the studies. He doesn't work for them now. He's a professor, but he's very associated with them. And he said, go on in the tombs. If it's been robbed, take a look. I can't come right now. I'm with my family. It's the Sabbath coming in on Friday, but I'll be there later tonight. He showed up a few hours later. So we go in. And in one of the niches, see these burial niches like this, we found slid in. I didn't put this image slid in. This would be slid in head first. Was the preserved skeletal remains of a first century person, we assumed, because the tomb had been sealed until that was broken into, with a burial shroud still on it. So we had a first century burial shroud. Now, it's fragmented and it's deteriorated. It looked to me like burnt cardboard or something. It was blackened, but as you look closer, you could see the fabric, you could see the weave, you could begin to study it. and it's a certain kind of cloth, linen, and it had a wool covering over it, but not mixed, because you can't mix in Judaism wool and linen. Wool is a sign of wealth, but the basic shroud around the person was linen. It had a certain way of weaving. It's called S-spun. Not going to go into all the details. I do in my longer video you can watch. Tabby weave, typical of Israel at the time. Now, we had that carbon dated. I actually sent the sample in to Arizona, right down here, University of Arizona. Doug Donahue did the test in Tucson, and it came out 95 to 53 CE. So 1st century, time of Jesus, maybe before, a little bit after, but that's how carbon dating is. Now, Doug Donahue is the same person who tested the Shroud of Turin. Isn't that interesting? I didn't send it to him. I wasn't even thinking of the Shroud of Turin. I sent it to him because I knew that the Tucson DNA lab, I knew that, I'm thinking DNA, I'm getting ahead of myself. I was thinking that the Tucson CMS lab that does dating of organic material would be the best to use. I live in North Carolina. Now, the Turin shroud has a different weave. It's 3-to-1 herringbone twill. It has a Z spin to it. And according to the experts, Orit Shamir studied it the most, our shroud and other shrouds. She says that weaving style is absent from 1st century linen textiles of the region. Now, shroud supporters will come up with all these reasons that, well, maybe there's a piece somewhere at Masada or whatever. It shows it could exist. But in terms of a burial shroud, finding a burial shroud in Jerusalem from the time of Jesus, we've got one. The other thing is it had a headpiece and a body piece, okay? If we'll see plenty of images of the shroud, but remember that one I showed you in the beginning? That is one cloth, one 14-foot cloth wrapped around the whole body, head to toe, kind of like a sandwich, right? You see my hand? And the body's inside like an envelope. That's not our shroud. Our shroud is a linen shroud wrapped around the body, tied with ties, and then a headpiece separate. Some people of your audience will already know, ooh, wow, that's like the Gospel of John, where there's the shroud and the headpiece separate. So already finding this, we thought, this is interesting. What are we going to say about it? So the point is, we do have a shroud. It has a headpiece and a body piece, and it's not like the Turin shroud, and the cloth is not like the Turin shroud. It doesn't prove that the Turin shroud could not be it. You could, well, maybe they used a different shroud, or maybe you could get some that were one piece, maybe. But I at least like to start with what we know. And what we know, this is the only 1st century, let me say that again, this is the only 1st century burial shroud ever found in Jerusalem from this period. So we've got one. Now, here are the letters. This is a little small to read, but I just wanted you to get the effect, because I think I can zoom in and read this. This is Doug Donahue. This is his cover letter, just telling me, wow, you guys have something here. Now, he didn't know what it was. This was a blind test. He just got the fabric. Could you date this for us? It's ancient, we think. And by the way, my friend Josias, who's the anthropologist, he got involved in this, and he said, that is not 1st century, Tabor. I can guarantee you it's probably medieval or Byzantine, because they reuse these tombs. So somebody's put a body in later. Why? Because cloth and shrouds cannot survive in Jerusalem. The climate is too wet, okay? And he said, if it's 1st century, I'll eat my hat. And he's a biker. He had a plastic hat on when he said it. So I always got a kick out of that. And Joe never ate his hat, but he did admit that, well, you guys were right. I mean, I didn't know if it was 1st century. It could have come out as medieval or Byzantine or even later. So Doug has signed the letter, and here's what he says at the bottom. Our friends from Shroud of Turin days would certainly have appreciated a result like that. Can you imagine if Doug Donahue had written this letter about a piece from the Shroud of Turin? It would be game over, wouldn't it? We wouldn't be having this program. Now, we could still say, yeah, it's 1st century, but we don't know if it's the Shroud of Jesus. but that would be a huge step. But when in 1988, when the C14 test came in on the shroud, and Doug was one of the labs and people who tested, it came out to be the 1400s. And that almost closed down the discussion in many ways. Many people thought at the time, forget it. It's been, it's been dated. It's definitely a medieval fabric. Here is our study of the tomb. You can get this online if you just do a Google search. First century Tomb of the Shroud, we call it Tomb of the Shroud. Akeldama is the place in Jerusalem where it was actually found. You can also get this article. This is about the textiles. So I don't want to get too technical here. If you go to jamestabor.com/shroud tomb, you'll get the whole report, videos of the night of the discovery. It's really enjoyable to watch. You can sense our excitement. My students can hardly talk, they're so breathless. Somebody just had a home movie camera. We started filming it. Shimon's up in the niche, taking the shroud out. You got to watch that video. That's just a link where it takes you right to my YouTube. Okay. Now, so that's shrouds. So we got a tomb and shrouds. So I'm asking, what do we know archaeologically? Secondly, crucifixion. What do we know about Roman crucifixion in Judea in the first century? Not a lot, but we have 5 examples of crucified people, all male as far as we know. Okay, so let me start with the nails in the hand. The Shroud of Turin has the nail through the wrist right here. And I've got to confess something to all of my thousands of students that I had at 3 different universities, Notre Dame, William and Mary, and UNC Charlotte for 33 years at Charlotte. You know what I said in all of my classes? We'd go through the Gospel of Mark. I've done courses on the Gospels every semester, my whole career. That's what I do. I teach New Testament and early Christianity. And I would say, now, students, I got to tell you something. Hands does not mean hands. You read in your Gospels, the nails are in the hands. We now know that's not true, right? Everybody knows that's not true. And it's a general term that can mean wrist and arm. And so all these paintings you've seen where the nails are in the hands and Jesus shows his hands to the disciples and to Thomas, and Thomas puts his finger in the nail hole of the hand, that's really the wrist. And I would tell them that. And guess what? I was wrong. Pierre Barbet is the one who started this. Can you believe this? In the 1930s, and every scholar now picks it up. We now know that crucifixion was in the wrist. What he did, he nailed cadavers to crosses, dead people. And he put nails in the hands and they would rip out. Well, first of all, if you put a little block of wood, like a little thin piece of wood, it wouldn't rip through the head, okay? But he basically made the argument, and he was a shroud believer, that's what he's trying to show, is that the wrist will hold the body up between the, the 2 bones in the wrist. What is it? The ulna, and I forget now.
I don't know the name of.
Yeah, but you know what I mean, right? Well, you can do it right here. It's
and,
the little
and
hole.
There's an image while you do it just to kind of bounce back and forth so people
can see
it.
Right.
Yeah.
Okay. So let me go back to the nails. Well, now, guess what? We have 2 sets of nails from crucified victims. This one was still in the hands. And it is, it's called the Abba tomb. And it was found north of Jerusalem. And the hand bone was preserved. And this is one of the nails in the hand. And you can see the bone on this other one. Now, a minute ago, I started talking about DNA and getting ahead of myself. We've done DNA on this. We actually have this person's DNA. His name in Josephus is Antigonus. He's the last Hashmonean king. He was captured by Herod the Great. Herod sent him to Mark Antony in Antioch, we think, and he was scourged and crucified and then beheaded and put in a tomb. And his body was later brought back to Jerusalem and buried. So that tomb was discovered by bulldozers a few years ago in a building crew. And these are the nails, and they were through the hands. And I'll explain in a minute why they would put it through the hands and why it has nothing to do with holding the body up. And these two nails were discovered in the Caiaphas tomb. Think of that. Joseph Caiaphas, the high priest in the time of Jesus, who presided over the trial of Jesus in the middle of the night, and the one who went with the crowd and took Jesus to Pontius Pilate. These were found in his tomb. And when they were discovered, they were just discarded, and nobody thought they were important, because you do find nails in tombs. And everybody thought, well, you know, they're used to scratch on the tomb. You know, you put somebody's name, it's kind of graffito, and you do it very sloppily with a nail. But Samka Jacobovici was able to find where these nails had gone and where they had been, and then the lab in which they were in Tel Aviv, and they're still there today, Tel Aviv University, and Israel Hershkovitz has them. And he began to study them because he had these nails, and he said, wait a minute, these are like these. They're exactly the same, and these also have bone material on them, and we also had these tested, just to be sure. So we have two examples of nails in the hands. So this Pierre Barbet is going by the shroud and telling the whole world Romans crucified in the wrist. And I'm going to show you later even more evidence that they didn't. We have no record of any crucifixions in the wrist. How about that? Hadn't you heard that, Derek? I heard it. I've always heard
yeah.
it.
Several arguments.
So what is the evidence? What is the evidence for the wrist? Look right here. See the wound there?
Yeah.
Now, everyone does know, go back to my slide. Okay. This is very famous. This is the heel bone. And it's actually the largest bone in the foot. And instead of putting the nail through the front of the foot like the Turin shroud has, we'll have more images, and you can go back if you want, but let me talk about it a minute. And so it's a longer nail. When you do your little break later, I forgot to go get it. I'm going to run downstairs because I have one.
I was just about to ask about it.
I'm going to bring it back up and show it, but I just didn't get it's in a locked case where I keep artifacts that we're studying right now to publish, but we're going to publish it. So we have a crucifixion nail. I'm not even going to tell you where it was found, but wait till you hear where it was found. Anyway, so that's a long nail about like that. See my fingers? And it went through the heels. Okay, I lost my, what happened there? Okay, now we have 3 heel bone. This is the one I just showed you. That's the Jerusalem one. That's a model, by the way. The real thing is at Tel Aviv University in a lab. This one was actually found in Great Britain. Notice same bone, same kind of idea, a little shorter nail. And this doesn't have the nail, but this was in Italy. And you can see same hole, same place, missing the nail. But it was in some skeletal remains in Italy. So we're pretty sure that the nails went through the heel, and it was like this. See this model? Like this. Like so that the body straddles the cross like stirrups, and it holds up the main weight of the body. Plus the body's going to be roped as well.
You're talking about the black and white image in the middle,
right
down
here.
in the
You can't see my cursor moving, right? Can you see it?
No, we can't.
Huh, I wonder why. Yeah, I've been pointing out things the whole time, thinking you can see them. Is there a way to point?
I don't think there's a way on this setting.
Okay, I'll describe things more. Sorry,
okay,
I thought you were seeing.
No problem.
Yeah, I've been clicking away here. Now, this is the traditional position, and that's the position of the Shroud of Turin, that the nail would be put through the foot. If you did that, you're in danger of hitting major veins and arteries and the person bleeding out. Plus, it's not really going to support the body. A single nail like that, even 2 nails. But that's the way the Shroud of Turin has it. So in terms of what we know archaeologically about Roman crucifixion, what can we say? Nails through the heel and in the hands. What does the Turin shroud have? Nails through the front of the foot and in the wrist. Okay, so that would be, in my view, an argument against it. Okay, now here's how it works. This is just a drawing of what it might have been like. And this is almost correct. But at the time this was done by Josiah's son, Etan, it's a nice drawing. You can see how that would support the weight of the body. They put a little piece of wood here to keep it from pulling out sideways. And sometimes a little plank to sit on for the buttocks right here behind the victim. The victim is naked. And then the arms were tied either up here, I'm pointing again, either the forearm or here, I'm getting mixed up, either the upper arm or the lower arm, we're not sure, it doesn't matter, but ropes are helping to hold the body. I wish I had my cursor because I've been pointing. But the hands, you've got to picture the hands up like this and turned on the back, and you tack those two nails in and then bend one of them, you see? One fixes the hand, and the other was like hanging a cup hanger almost. You tack it up. Now, why would you do that? It's not to hold the weight of the body. The weight of the body is held by the feet and the ropes, where the person can't start going like this. Over hours, it would loosen the ropes, and the crucifixion would not be as effective. You want the person to stay intact for days, really, until they're dehydrated and exhausted and finally basically pass out. So crucifixion was naked. Obviously, you don't want to show much of that, and you're not going to find, this is the only painting I've ever seen where Jesus is naked. But even here they have the so-called thieves, which actually means revolutionaries. They're violent. Lestes means a brigand, somebody that stabs you and slits you and kills you. So they have them naked, but they're not going to make Jesus naked for obvious reasons of sensitivity. But so why am I showing this? Do I just want to show Jesus naked? No. I want to show how this guy's tied. This is a painter, a Russian painter, Fyodor Bronilov, and he knew crucifixion was naked. He didn't know about the feet. See, he has the nails in the feet on a little platform like that. But look how he has the body tied up. That's probably how it was done. And picture now those hands being nailed down, like we saw with those two sets we have of hand nails. There it is right there. Jesus probably was, this would be a better image of Jesus right here. Just like that. Also, he has short hair. We're going to get to that. The Turin Shroud guy has long hair. Why would you put long hair on Jesus? Where did that come from? You know, Robin Faith Walsh, our friend, has given lectures on images of Jesus and how it developed over the years. And suddenly he has long hair and a beard. He's like a Greek philosopher, right? Or a Greek god. But in the early days, he's pictured, as Paul says, it's a shame for a male to have long hair. He writes to the Corinthians in 1 Corinthians, I think, 11. Okay. Now, we also have graffiti. Now, these don't help as much. This is at Puzioli. It's the port of Rome. It's where Paul landed in the book of Acts. And it is a woman, supposedly. Her name is Aklimila. It's a feminine name. It's graffito. We can't tell much about the hands, but it does look like the feet are more straddling the cross. You see, it's just not clear. It's not an exact image of how they crucified. Somebody's making a cartoon. This might be an animal skin, or it could, some people think it's that she was beaten and whipped. But notice, kind of hung from the hands. This looks like more the wrist, but this looks like more the hand. So that might help a little. And then we've got two more images of crucifixion from the ancient world. This is a gem. It's from the later 3rd, 4th century. And it looks like the person might be tied by the wrist, but notice right here, see how the feet are on the side? And here is the Alexamenos graffito. It's in Rome. It's earlier. This actually we think is no, wait, I'm trying to think. Yeah, I think this one might be the earliest. And there's some unknown person named Alexamenos, and he's worshiping his god, and it's a crucified horse. So some have argued that this is making fun of Christians who worship the head of a donkey or a head of an ass or something like that. So the art doesn't help us a lot, but it does show the straddling of the cross, at least. whether the nails were put through the ankles or not. And we have 3 examples of that. This is an artist, Balaj, that worked for my book, The Jesus Dynasty. I hired him to do this painting for me. I didn't know at the time that you needed to put ropes and put the hands on the back with those nails. I didn't know that. This was in 2005 when I had this done. But he does have the feet right, and he has the bodies naked. And I have the crucifixion on the Mount of Olives overlooking the city. That is my view of where it took place. You can go to my blog and just type in Golgotha or place of crucifixion, and you can see my arguments for that. Okay. Now, to finish up with crucifixion, the book to get is John Granger Cook, Crucifixion in the Mediterranean World, over 500 pages, very academic book. He translates Greek, Latin, in some case, I think maybe a couple of Aramaic texts, but mostly Greek and Latin, all references to crucifixion from the ancient Mediterranean world. And there are a lot, as I said, over 500 pages. And he translates them into English, and no examples of nails in the wrist ever mentioned, but nails in the hands a couple of times. It's not always clear. So yeah, I think we could say crucifixion was done various ways. Maybe not even using nails. Some people said maybe just hang the person up and just leave them hanging there strapped and they'll finally die. But in our Gospels, definitely wounds and nails in the feet and in the hands. And that does fit and conform to our archaeological evidence. So we have a 1st century burial shroud in a 1st century tomb. It's got a headpiece and a body piece. It's made out of simple linen weave, kind of a tabby weave. And it doesn't fit the shroud. And we have 5 examples of crucifixion, one from Britain, one from Italy. The others are from Jerusalem itself. And it looks like the ankle and the nails in the hands are pretty well established. Okay, now we're going to go to what do we know from the Gospels? And this gets to Mark again. You mentioned my course in Mark, Derek. And here's the passage. We're not going to read it all, but many of you know this, Mark 15. You have the account of Joseph of Arimathea, a member of the Sanhedrin, going to Pilate, the governor, and asking for the body, being granted the body. And he bought a linen shroud, there's our word, Sidona, and taking him down, wrapped him in the linen shroud. So he bought a linen shroud, and it's in the plural, Sidona, not Sidon. So he bought linen shroud material. So it would include the headpiece and the body piece and the straps. He bought the whole kit, so to speak. You buy these where you buy ossuaries, where you buy spices. You know, I mean, these are sold by a funerary merchant that handles death. And these things are manufactured. So I think they're fairly standardized, and we have one now. And he wrapped him in the linen shroud and laid him in a tomb. Luke adds where no man had yet laid, and that's probably true. We have it in a couple other sources. And then the tomb is hewn out of the rock, and he rolled a stone against the door. Now, remember I said, I don't think this is Joseph of Arimathea's tomb. Notice he takes him down from the cross. First of all, if you have a clean linen shroud, a new shroud, he bought it, it's new, right? And you take a bloodied body that's been whipped, beaten, crucified, dehydrated, abused for 24 hours, lay it out on this clean linen shroud, wrap his body, wrap his face, cover his face modestly, and carry him on a bier to a tomb. What's that shroud going to look like in terms of smears and pools of blood and streaks and the weight of the body? It will not look like the Turin shroud. So you almost need 2 shrouds to believe in the Turin shroud. But we only know of one in this account, at least. And also, rolling a stone against the door, it's not this rolling stone you always picture like that, you know, like at the Garden Tomb in Jerusalem. It just means, in Greek, It's an empty tomb. Nobody's ever used it. It happens to be nearby the place of crucifixion, as you're going to see in a minute. And he says, get that stone over there. We got to block this up because the Sabbath's coming and the Passover's coming. And we can't have jackals and predators eating away at the body of our rabbi. I mean, this is respect for the dead. They can't take a dead body back home. Where are you going to put a dead body hours before the holiday on the Sabbath, if it's Friday, and Passover that night? Remember the Jews who tried Jesus, they have been ritually purified against death and dead bodies and all that because they got to eat the Passover that night. Now, I put this up. This is Greek. This is English. Why does everybody say, I mean, my academic colleagues, Derek, you start asking all your friends, does the New Testament generally say that it was Joseph of Arimathea's tomb? I think everybody, that's well known. It's not well known. We have 4 accounts, and 3 of them do not say that, and 1 even denies it, as you're going to see. So what did Matthew do? Only Matthew has it. He adds 1 word right here. There's the Greek word. I want you to show it's just a possessive pronoun, his. Look, if I read it without that, and he took and he put him in tomb new, in a new tomb, not his new tomb. There it is in English. They add own. Actually, it just says, and laid it in his tomb. Own is added by the translators. Look at that. Now, why would Matthew do that? Does he know something? Do you remember in Isaiah 53, and Matthew's big on these prophecies being fulfilled, right? Jesus has to be buried in a rich man's tomb. I don't know if this tomb near the cross, where Romans crucify regularly, I think on the Mount of Olives, was a rich man or not. It might not have been a rich man. But Isaiah 53 says that the suffering servant who's wounded and led like a lamb to the slaughter, and by his stripes we're healed, he's buried in a rich man's tomb. So Matthew thinks, Joseph is rich, and it's probably his tomb. Remember, he hasn't seen the other Gospels, so he's editing Mark. We just read Mark. Mark doesn't say that. Mark just says there was an unused tomb nearby, and they go, let's put him in here until after the festival. And remember, the women had to follow to see where it was. If you go to the Church Holy Sepulchre and you're standing at the place of crucifixion, you don't have to follow. You just look across the room, and there it is, right? Right across the room. I think I have a picture later of that. Now, in John, usually scholars say, or people get the impression, scholars say, this is changing now in our field, that John is the most theological and least reliable historically. But the narratives of John, and particularly the last days of Jesus, have all these details that the Gospel of Mark, Matthew, and Luke don't have. Got to take a sip of water here. And what John typically does is rewrite Mark. Now, some of you know Mark Goodacre, Duke University. He has been writing and arguing lately, and I'm convinced that he's correct, that John is our 4th synoptic gospel, that John is well aware of Mark. Whether he knows all of Matthew and Luke, we'll leave it to Goodacre to go into the details. But he's given lectures on this. He gave one last year at Bart Ehrman's conference, and he's gave one at the Biblical Archaeology Society Bible Fest last year. That John fills in details that you don't have. Now, whether they're historical or not, I'm talking about rewriting an account and adding things that do in fact seem to fit the narrative of what we know. So here we have, again, Joseph of Arimathea. He also has another helper or partner, Nicodemus, with him. Notice they get permission to take the body. They took the body and bound it in linen clothes. This is a different word in Greek. It basically means wrappings, literally. Wrappings with spices as is the burial custom of the Jews. So now we need a shroud with fragrant wrappings all in it, right? There should be traces of that. As far as I know, there are no spice traces in the Shroud of Turin. But look at this. This is the verse I want you to notice. Now, in the place where he was crucified, there was a garden, and in the garden, a new tomb where no one had ever been laid. Now, here's the verse everybody misses, verse 42. So, because of the Jewish day of preparation, as the tomb was close at hand, they laid Jesus there. So why did they pick this tomb? Because it was nearby, and because they didn't have much time, and because they had to block it up. Nobody was using it. It wasn't even finished yet. In order to come back later and get the body and give it a permanent burial, which I think they did. So Mark agrees. Matthew adds the pronoun his. Luke goes with Mark. John goes with Mark and even explains it. So if you're a Bible person, you should jump all over this and say, well, you know, Matthew does say his tomb, but that doesn't seem to fit the evidence. What are the chances that this rich man with an estate south of Jerusalem at Arimathea would happen to have a tomb, if I'm right, on the Mount of Olives, right next to where the Romans regularly crucify hundreds and hundreds of victims all the time? That's the place where they crucify. Josephus says during the Jewish revolt, they crucified 500 people a day on the Mount of Olives. Why? Because it's in front of the city. See, everybody can see what's happening. You've been there, Derek. If you're way up on the other side of the city on the north where the Church of the Holy Sepulchre was, or is now, and they say is the site, you can't even see the Mount of Olives. But the Mount of Olives can be seen from all over the city. It's also a main road coming in. All of Galilee comes in down the Jordan to Jericho and up the Mount of Olives. They go up the Mount of Olives and they get this side of the temple, and then they start singing and praising God and walking down the slopes. We know that from Josephus. That's the pilgrim walk. And so it just makes sense. So Joseph is not going to have a tomb there. And plus it says a new tomb where no one had been laid. And why did they pick it? Because I call it a burial of emergency. So it's not Joseph's tomb. John 20, 1 through 10 is probably the most original account of what happened. Mary finds the tomb. She runs to the disciples and says, they've taken the Lord out of the tomb. We don't know where they've laid him. Have you ever noticed that? What does Mary say to the disciples? They have taken the Lord, the Master, out of the tomb. What do we read previously? They stuffed him there. They stored him there, right? And blocked it up. And now she comes early Sunday morning when it's still dark, and he's already gone. Nothing about resurrection. And left behind linen clothes of the shroud and the face covering. The two separate items, just as with the Akeldama tomb. So this account right here, I skipped over. I think I skipped this slide. I believe, I'm convinced, I'm convinced of this. Derek, you've heard me say this before. If you take the first 10 verses of John 20 right here, just the first 10 verses, I think this is the original account of the discovery of the empty tomb. I think it's older than Mark. I think John, the author of John, or a source for the author, had this and he put it in. And this is that story about Mary finding it. They've taken the Lord. She goes and tells the disciples. Peter and the beloved disciple run to go look. And they eventually go in the tomb and they see the two pieces of the cloth. And notice right here it says, then the other disciple went in. Peter goes first. He saw and believed. Now, all the Turin people see this phrase as he believed in the resurrection. But notice, for as yet they did not know the scripture that he must rise from the dead. So what did they, just this pericope, what did they see and believe? They've taken the Lord out of the tomb and we don't know where they've laid him. They believe her. Yeah, you're right. He's gone. Then the disciples went back to their homes. I think that's the Galilee, actually. Their homes. They went back home. And that fits the Gospel of Peter, where they returned to the Galilee. But I don't want to do a whole thing on resurrection. Now let's talk about the cloth. Now I'm calling it the Lorraine cloth. Lorraine is a town south of France. That's where the cloth first appeared in about 1355, the year 1355 AD or CE. Here's what I want to emphasize. Does this look anything like that black and white image?
Not quite.
Really.
Yeah.
No, not quite.
I mean, I can see a shape at the top, but not.
Okay, I can see a head there. I can see a body. I can see legs. I can see
wrist. The wrist penetrate.
Right.
Yeah.
And I can see the back here. This is the buttocks and the back and so forth. I can, if you get up close, you would be able to see some stripes. But if you're real close to the shroud, let's say you're 2 yards away. I've been told this by people that have seen it up close. You can't hardly make out anything. As you get back, you see something like this.
Okay.
I would call it a very ethereal image. Now here, these are burn marks, the corners. If it was folded up into sections, and there was a fire, and the fire left these holes. This is probably dripping metal that made these holes. So someone took away all that. I got this image from, I think I got it from Nicholas Allen. And here's what people would have seen in the Middle Ages. This even wouldn't be here. This would have
bottom.
been, yeah. They would have seen the head, see, the bottom one. Yeah, I'm sorry, I'm pointing again. So the bottom one, I got to describe rather than point. I need a pointer. Need another drink. I'm talking fast here.
No worries. And I just want people to see the other version we've been using.
Yeah.
Just to bounce back and forth. So, okay.
So it might have been impressive because people were told this is the burial cloth that, covered Jesus, wrapped around his whole body like a U shape. Doesn't fit the cloth, the shape, or anything we know about a first century burial shroud. And yet, when you see this in color, the marks and the wounds do have a reddish color to them. They're not black. They're something like this, but they're redder. And there, the face is pretty clear, as you can see. Okay.
Right.
Now, when was it first mentioned? There is a bishop. His name is Pierre d'Acry, Bishop of Troyes, in France. It's south of Paris, about 2 hours south of Paris by car if you drove there today. And in 1389, he writes this letter in Latin to the Pope Clement, and he says, "This shroud has shown up in our district because Léry is part of the district of Troyes. Americans pronounce it Troy." And here's a quote from it right here. And he thinks it's probably not authentic. I mean, he doesn't believe it's the shroud of Jesus, and he thinks people are being fooled. So he says in his letter to the Pope, after diligent inquiry and examination, he discovered the fraud and how the said cloth had been cunningly painted, and the truth being attested by the artist who'd painted it, to wit, that it was a work of human skill and not miraculously wrought or bestowed. So when they would look at this, they don't know anything about ultraviolet light, or they would think somehow the image of Jesus was printed on this as he rose up through the cloth. You see the idea? It's ethereal, it's mysterious. And that's what they would think. And if you think it's not that, you'd probably say, oh, it's probably painted. Somehow somebody's put a pigment on the shroud. And it turns out through scientific investigations, the shroud defenders are right. It cannot be paint. There's no elements of paint. There's no elements of any kind of coloring on the shroud. The shroud is just a few layers of the linen fabric. They're called fibrils, not even whole threads. It's almost like a scorch mark. Well, you can see how that would fit the idea. Wow. So when Jesus rose, there was this huge energy burst, and that left the image on the shroud. Now, Medieval people are not going to think that. They would just think they probably think he kind of passed through the shroud and left that image, and his wounds and everything were printed. Okay, then we can trace it. It went from Leret to Chambéry to Turin. That's why we call it today the Shroud of Turin. And here's the background on it. 1355, it first appears in the village of Leret, southeast of Paris. This particular French knight had charge of it. I looked up how to pronounce his name. We would just say Jeffrey, but it's Geoffroy de Charnay. So Geoffroy de Charnay owned it, and that's the bishop's memorandum 1389. It was moved to the House of Savoy in 1453 and kept in the castle at Chambéry, and then it was finally moved third time, 1578, to Turin, Italy. Duke of Savoy moved it, okay? Now, notice those dates. Interesting. Medieval, medieval, medieval. We can trace it. But the first one is what I want you to notice. This is where we first hear of it, and we have this bit of evidence in the letter and nobody can find it mentioned earlier. I know those who believe in the shroud think there's a trail of evidence, but if you begin looking, it's not clear at all that it's the shroud. And it's a very fragmented trail. Usually it goes like this. It's in Jerusalem, Jesus, 1st century. Then in the 6th century, it shows up in Edessa, Turkey. The Muslims took it. And they usually identify it with this cloth that's now disappeared in Turkey, the mandilon cloth. And that's actually just, I think, the face, really. But they say, oh, it's folded up so the head was on the top. And then maybe moved to Constantinople because there's some reference to a shroud in Constantinople. And then it went to the 13th century. And then there are these other face cloths that sometimes are said to maybe have something to do with the shroud, particularly this one that's in Spain, the Sudarium of Oviedo. It dates to the 700s, and there's no firm evidence for it before that. So you go from 1st century Jerusalem, 700 Spain, that's the cloth that was on Jesus's face. Now, wait a minute. If a burial shroud has a body cloth wrapped around with tie straps and a face cloth separate, like our shroud does, and like the Gospel of John says, what is this face cloth? And what shroud supporters say for authenticity, as I've explained the word authenticity, is that when they took him down from the cross, he was bleeding and blood's going to come out of his nose and so forth. So they put a cloth on his nose to just hold his head as they pulled him down. And then they put him on that nice clean shroud and wrapped him all up around like that. And somebody said, well, let's keep the face cloth. You know, it has the blood of Jesus on it. And they took it. And so when it's discovered in the tomb, that's not the face cloth that covered him when he was wrapped in the shroud, because the shroud covers the whole head. You'll see in a minute. I'm going to show you pictures of how it was put around. And it's one cloth, 14 feet, wrapped all the way around the body. I don't think there's any trail of evidence. Ian Wilson, famous book, I think he wrote it in the 70s. Robert Orlando recently put out a film. He tries to trace it. And, you know, it's like he has a map and he goes, oh, it went to here and it went to here. And you go, wait a minute, where are the texts that mention it? And you start looking. And there's no firm evidence of anything like this. There just isn't. And you'll hear people say we can trace it, but you can't. Here's what the Sudarium of Oviedo looks like. That's supposed to be the blotted face of Jesus. Okay. By the way, it was carbon dated, and as I recall, it comes out 6th, 7th, 8th century, right in that range. Now, here's what I'm talking about. Medieval paintings start copying the Shroud of Turin. See this? See what they're doing? And so he's taken down from the cross. Here's the tomb. That's not a very bloody body, is it? I mean, I'm not going to laugh here, but you have to laugh when you think of these medieval people giving these pristine images of Jesus. Nice little And look, the hands are already folded, ready for the display of the shroud, and then they put that on. Here's another one. They're thinking he's put in like a coffin or something, which we know wasn't the case. And once again, so this kind of takes over the medieval imagination. Now, this one is colorized, where the stripes are actually shown with more color. So this is not how it looks, but I just wanted you to see the wounds. So you can see there's marks all up and down the arms. There's the wrist, stripes all here, and all on the back of the legs. You see that all on the back, crown of thorns here. This, by the way, is a watermark. That's not this head. A lot of people think, oh, you'd have to have a space between the head. Here is one where someone has taken the faint image and put the blood on, just to show you what they believe it would have been like. So that helps to see that. That's probably the clearest. It doesn't look like that, but that's probably the clearest image. Notice the hands are modestly covering the private parts. You could see why that would be done. If it was created in some way, you're going to have a bit of modesty here. There's no way you're going to show the organs of Jesus. I mean, that would just not work. But in Jewish burial, typically you put the arms at the side and you wrap the person in the shroud. So now here's the intriguing thing that happened. Let me say again, nobody in the Middle Ages saw the vividness of that color. This is what they would have seen at the most, but more like those early, I won't go back and find it, but those early images that are very faint, okay? Okay, now, suddenly, the miracle happens. A photographer by the name of Secundo Pio in 1898 photographed this. Now picture the whole shroud. This is the shroud. The face is very intriguing there. You can see it. He made good photos of the shroud. And when he developed them, so this is a negative, you see? It's a negative. When he developed them, he got the positive, and you could imagine. And here's his actual account. I'm going to read it because it's so dramatic. Based on his experience of May 25th, he varied the exposure times and lighting. That's why it's not quite like we have filters today, but he was able to get a really good photo of the negative image. Look at that. That's amazing. Much more impressive than what you'd see with your naked eye, as we say. At around midnight, the three men went back to develop the plates. He had two assistants. Pio later said that he almost dropped and broke the photographic plate in the darkroom from the shock of what appeared on it. The reverse plate showed the positive image of a man and a face in a detail that could not be seen by the naked eye. So for all these centuries, 500 years, what had people seen? They'd seen this and thought, whoa, that's ethereal and that's amazing. And some of the priests and the bishops are telling us this is the very burial shroud of Christ. And it was moved to Turin, which is close to Rome, to be closer to the Pope and the Vatican. It became a very important relic of the Catholic Church, although they never officially said it is the Shroud of Christ. They have said it is a very important relic to certainly show people what crucifixion was like. But this just knocks you over. You are now looking at a face. It's swollen, it's bruised up. Supposedly the beard has been partly plucked out. The long hair. Now, whether the long hair would hang like that if a dead body was lying, and whether Jesus even had long hair, you can raise those questions. But do you see how people in 1898, this just made world headlines, would be blown away by this? Am I looking into the face of Jesus of Nazareth? Think about it. And then all the scientific tests began. How, not this. This is the printout, so to speak. This is the positive. How could you put this on so skillfully to get this positive? You can't really paint a negative. You know, a negative is so subtle because it's got all these three-dimensional qualities of light capturing a 3D image, right? You can't paint that and then develop it and it's going to look like that. So people came up with all sorts of theories that thought it wasn't real. And now when you get the photographic image of the whole thing in the positive, look at this. It is quite intriguing. And there we are with our image again. I remind, this is the bottom is what people saw before it was burnt. And it's ethereal, but nothing like this. So all those studies that we saw listed are because of that. Now, here are some observational problems. I'll just mention there are many more. Nails in the wrists, I would question that. Nails through the front of the feet, I would question that. A 14 by 3 foot sandwich shroud, no head wrapping, I would question that. Why would I question those? On the basis of our archaeology. Long hair hanging straight down, first of all, gravity and matted hair, it doesn't seem like it would just be like that if you're laying the body flat. I think it's just part of the image of Jesus at that time that he had long hair. And he looks more like Serapis or one of the Greek gods. The head done separately, size and detail. The head is more detailed and it's possible that it was made separately. We got to talk about how it was made. Arms and hands positioned for covering the genitals, top of the head and sides of the body invisible. Notice, if a burst of energy came from the body in general, think about this, Derek, it wouldn't be just from the front and the back, it would be the whole body. So the cloth actually should have the front and then it should have the side splashed out and the top of the head, right? Because the energy is going to burst through the body and the back the same way. So it should actually look kind of like this, not like this. You follow? You see what I mean? Because, I mean, this is still your body, even if a shroud isn't covering it. So, okay, unnatural, discrete, uniform blood markings. The blood markings are done, I'm going to argue, with a kind of a stamp, like a potato stamp type thing, where you carve out two balls and then a whip, and you stamp it. They're very uniform. They go down like this. They go down like this. And you saw even on the back and the front. I'll go back and show you again, just to remind you, because we didn't emphasize that. See? Especially right here, you see, like this, like this. You can actually measure them and see.
We can't see what you're pointing at because you're exactly where, near the wrist or in the back, or just watching.
Well, just up and down and all over the legs.
Yeah.
So forth, yeah.
Okay.
Particularly on the back legs going down. You see that?
Yeah, it looks uniform in a way. Like,
yeah. Now, I've seen some shroud defenders lately on YouTube, and they pick up a little Roman whip that they've had made, a model of a Roman whip for the flagellation. And they say, look at this. It's got the leather straps and the balls. And if you notice, the way the balls would hit would exactly fit the length of those wounds on the Turin shroud. How would a faker know that? And it turns out that they've made the whip based on the wounds on the shroud. It's a little bit backwards, because they're not holding up a model of a known Roman whip. The Roman whips for flagellation varied. Sometimes they were just leather. Sometimes they were leather with glass. Sometimes they were leather with bone. Sometimes they were leather with metal, little metal balls like this one is supposed to be. But how do I know what you look like if you're flogged? People do it today. You've seen videos of this in the Philippines at Easter. People take these whips with the leather straps and pieces of metal and glass and bone, and they beat the heck out of themselves with their whole body, right? And when you look at the pictures, it's just horrible. It's smeared, and the flesh is just ripped out in big chunks. It's not like little marks like this. And also remember, you're laying the body on the shroud in that condition right off the cross. And
Yeah,
it's going
you
to
would think it would spread. Yeah.
it's going to blotch and blot and pool and so forth. So I just don't think it fits. Now you will see articles. I've read a lot of shroud stuff in the last few weeks to get ready for this presentation, and the one I gave last week, it's a little fuller, longer. And people would say, oh, but the anatomical details and the medical observations are exactly right. And we've had doctors and forensic anthropologists look at it. Look again at the image. You just don't have that kind of detail. There it is. It's just not that clear that you have all. They'll talk about the spear wound and how the blood flows and all of that kind of thing. Okay, now, so what do we have when we look back at the evidence? That was the shroud. We have the carbon dating results that came out to 1260 to 1390, independently done at 3 labs, Tucson, Oxford, and Zurich. The critics say they're all wrong, either contamination, like they used a sample that wasn't as old as the shroud, prejudice, they're even accused of faking the results. Their math is wrong. Their whole article showing that the results were not calculated right. Sample taken from a repaired area, or this one you can't really address. The radiation from the resurrection changed the carbon, so you can't date it. Okay. Right or wrong, look, I've read some of the critiques. Some of them might be valid. I don't know. But isn't it interesting that 3 independent labs, Tucson, Oxford, and Zurich, would take this sample, come up with this date, 1260 to 1390. The relic first appears in 1350 in the church at Lirey, and the bishop's letters, 1389. Just put those together. And no prior history other than, as I said, these, oh, well, there was a face cloth in Odessa in Turkey that the Muslims probably took from Jerusalem, and that was probably the shroud. And then I think it ended up in Constantinople 400 years later because somebody mentions a shroud there. And then the face cloth got to Spain and so forth. I just think this is circumstantially pretty strong. Now, here's the problem. No painting. I agree with this. No painting, no direct contact with face or statue. In other words, if you put a cloth over a face and pull it out with some sort of dye on it or whatever, it'll be all distorted, right? Because it would take up the sides and then you open it. So no face or statue, putting a cloth, no bas relief, no rubbing, no stamping will produce the lifelike 3D detailed superficial coloring of the upper linen fibers like a scorch with red colored real blood. The blood has been tested. It is blood. Now, whether it's pig blood, chicken blood, or human blood, I don't know. All that's correct. So there is a mystery to the shroud. The scientifically studied shroud is mysterious. So you have to explain the Lirey cloth. You have to account for all 10 of these qualities. Okay, I'll just read through them. Superficiality. The first 3 to 4 fibrils have to have the pigment or the color. So it's not slopped on or pressed on where it would ooze, nothing like that. It's got to be incredibly detailed, which it is. Thermally stable because it went through a fire and the image is not hurt by the fire. No pigment found on the shroud, so it wasn't painted on. It's 3-dimensional, so it wasn't put down over something and then pulled up. Think about that. That's very important. If it's formed by touching the body, then it's going to be all distorted and smeared. This is a body of Jesus lying, and then as he's raised with all this energy up, that resurrection causes the image. That's the theory. It's a negative image, not a positive. It's directionless. It doesn't show brush marks or anything. It's chemically stable. It's water stable. You can't wash it out. And it's top lit quality. So these are the dilemmas. And the point made by advocates is you have to satisfy all 10 of these, and nothing less than the resurrection of Jesus will satisfy all 10. Okay? What else would do it? And I think they're correct, except for this. Something called solarography. Now, it is not photography. Everybody says, oh, so Nicholas Allen, who I think he's solved it. He has a book. I think it's even available online, maybe as a PDF. I believe a couple of Shroud people have made it available. You can check around and find it. It's called Turin's Shroud, Testament to a Lost Technology. I have been talking to him now intensely for some time and developing this presentation. And he agrees with all 10 of those criteria. And you're going to see on the cover his image. This is his image. He made this. Look at that. And it's got all 10 of the criteria. I don't need to go back and read them. You see? It's three-dimensional. Now,
you're saying that image is a recreation someone else constructed in the modern era.
That's right. Nicholas Allen. And how did he do it? He agrees that it's radiation, but it's radiation from the sun. And also, Nathan Wilson, you got to look this up, Derek. Go to shadowshroud.com. It was in Christianity Today. It's the most humorous article. Remember Father Brown, the detective in the Chesterton novels? You know, he's a friend of C.S. Lewis. He's always figuring out mysteries. So he says, I'm going to show how Father Brown fakes the shroud. Now, he does it differently. He takes plain linen and glass plates and puts them in the sun and draws images on the plates. And guess what? It will make a superficial image on the linen because the sun goes around like this. So you get your 3D effect, and then when you take the glass off, it takes several days and the sun has to be up high and so forth. So read that. Now, it's not the same process, but it is solarography.
Did you want me to show that website or no? Shroud.
Not now, but people could go to it.
I'll send it in the chat.
Yeah, send it in the chat. Yeah. Now, basically, I'm putting Wilson here because I like him. He's a gentle guy. He's humorous. He's funny, and he thinks it was made by some way by the ultraviolet radiation of the sun. But that's not Nicholas Allen's thesis. His thesis is, and this is his image, a better picture of it. Notice, you say, well, it doesn't look like the guy of the shroud. Well, it isn't the guy of the shroud, but it's a guy, and it is a human face, and it was made by a technique of the sun. It was made by the sun. I have a linen shirt hanging in the closet, and I'm not going to ruin it by putting it in the sun. But do any of you have experience with curtains where something was in the sun and it blocked and it makes a superficial image on the linen? This is what linen does. And that's what Allen began to think about. It's got to be 3D. It's got to be all 10 of those characteristics. So people go, oh, so he's claiming that they invented photography 500 years before it was invented. Well, that's impossible. We would all know about it. And people would be making photographs by the thousands all through the Middle Ages. No, because nobody's seeing the photographic image till 1898. Remember that. All they're seeing is this image over here on the, what is it? Your left side of the book. See that? That's all they're seeing. They're not going to be making photographs because they don't know this is a photograph. And it's not a photograph. But a photograph is a solar image, isn't it? That's what a photograph is. It's light affecting a film surface. So pinhole cameras. It's called camera obscura. Camera means room in Latin. Obscura means dark. So dark room. Chinese had them, 400 BC. There's an Arab scientist. His name is, I'll probably mispronounce it because I don't know what it would be in Arabic, but Al-Haytham or Al-Haytham 1000. He writes treatises on how to do this. If you were a kid and you made a pinhole camera, you're already familiar with this. If you take a candle and a box and put a little pinhole in it and you peek inside, you will see the upside image of a candle in full color. Now, it won't be etched on the box, but it's a projector. You say, how could it be a projector? It's the way your eye works. I'm looking at Derek now, and in my eye, it's flipped upside down. The light's coming through my eye, through the lens, it's flipping it. My eye is a pinhole camera. And then it goes onto the retina, and it records it, and it goes into the nerves in ways that we don't even understand today. We have very little understanding of how it works, but we know the process. So Nicholas decides, Dr. Allen, he thinks, how would you do a whole body? What if you did a whole body? And here's his slide. This is his slide. Thank you, Dr. Allen. And you've got to figure out the distance. But if you had a statue or a body or something the size of a human and a dark room, it would make this image, and you just have to have a surface that will preserve the image on linen, right? Okay. Now, the image of the Turin Shroud is so precise that you probably need a lens. And you can go on ChatGPT today, or is it GPT? Yeah, ChatGPT. I always say GTP or GPT. You go on, I just call it chat. You go on chat today, one of the large language models, and type in, what do you think of Dr. Nicholas Allen's theory of the pinhole camera accounting for the shroud? And it will begin to state a bunch of falsehoods. It'll say, well, the problem with it is, yes, we had pinhole cameras, but there are no lenses like that available. And silver nitrate was not used until much, much later. So you get all these refutations that are not correct. So here's a beautiful optical quartz requillary. It's to hold a relic. Look at it. That's from pure quartz. And in Nicholas's larger lecture that's on my YouTube channel, go hear his. This is Derek's, I'm giving this for Derek's group. I have my own version of this that I expand a lot more and tell more stories and so forth that Derek's listened to. That's why he asked me to come on. And then I have Nicholas Allen's presentation that's even more like art history and everything. And he shows all of these lenses. Did you know people even had spectacles at this time? He's got pictures of people with glasses on from the 1200s. These people in Arabic countries in the Middle East, they were very advanced scientifically. So he set up a system using a big dark room. And I'm showing the result first because I want you to show how striking it is. And he just did a head. He just did a bust, as you can see here, just a head, not even the shoulders. And he used a certain method that I'll explain. That's a piece of linen. And that was done by the sun over a period of time where the sun has to pass over several times for up to 2-3 days. And look, that's not that impressive. I mean, okay, how'd you do that? It's this very subtle mark on the linen that meets all 10 of those criteria, all 10. And when you develop it, look, 3D pops out. Isn't that amazing? Bingo. We know how the shroud was made.
I love it. I mean, that's awesome.
There it is. Now, he tried to make that figure look a little like the Turin figure, but people that criticize this, oh, yeah, but his has a lot of light right here, and the nose is very bright. The Turin shroud doesn't have a bright nose, and on, things that have nothing to do with the process. That would all depend on the model, the statue, or the corpse that you use. Understand? Like all the criticisms are superficial. People are so set on this that they don't find this impressive. Derek, you don't have anything invested in this. Is this impressive or not? This
I think this is
this. This
Right.
is this.
Yeah, I think it's cool. I mean, for me, I think it's impressive to discover how, because I like the whole Scooby-Doo, detective and pulling and unmasking and discovering.
So
That's the cool part about it.
Yeah. So the technical thing is, okay, could it have been done in the 14th century? Were the materials available? The lens was definitely available because you need a lens to really sharpen it. So he discovered that silver sulfate is only slightly soluble in water, and it's perfect for shroud manufacture. At first, he used silver nitrate, and it just basically doesn't work as well. Both were available, but silver sulfate, what he told me, if you don't even measure it, take a bucket of water and dump some in, imagine, no measuring, and it goes evenly through all the water. It's soluble. It finds its place, and some goes down to the bottom. And people later can watch this and zoom in and take screenshots and so forth. I could even give you the slides, possibly, Derek. We could decide about that. Some of the images are copyrighted, though. It forms a precipitate at the bottom. And then what you do is you wash it off and you wash it off with ammonium hydroxide. It'll take off 99.999% of the silver. One of the objections is, well, we would find silver all over the shroud. I've even heard knowledgeable people say that, but they've never tried this. Now, how do you get ammonium hydroxide? Go to the toilet and pee in a jar, and you've got it. And wash it with human urine, works fine. You can use other forms of urine, is the most available. And then any ions that are left that weren't used to form the image are just washed off. And what you have is this linen that's been basically mesmerized by the threads, with this UV light. It has the same qualities as a scorch. Have you ever been ironing anything and you get a scorch, especially on linen? You got to be careful. Use a very hot iron for linen, as you know, but you got to be careful. But if you scorch it, that's the same process, but that's radiated heat, right? That's radiated heat, not light. But both systems require radiant energy, rather.
Someone said it literally is the Shroud of Urine.
Yeah, right. Are you getting all kinds of comments? Yeah. So, and Alan thinks there's still some silver residue. Probably, he said parts per million might stay, or parts per billion. But the instruments that tested for this, did not even look for silver. So that's not an objection. It does work. Another objection is that if you take it's called a VP8 image analyzer. It's from the 70s. I think I put for the moon, but I think it was actually for Mars. I was wrong there. Somebody corrected me, and I just left it for now because it would work on the moon. You're trying to get contours, and this is the Shroud of Turin. And see, it will make a 3D image.
Which one, on the left or the right?
On the right. I'm sorry, again, I forgot.
Okay.
So the one on the right is the Shroud of Turin. The one on the left is Alan's. I think it passes the test just fine. It's not a very good image, but it shows the contours, you see. Mm-hmm. And also, this wasn't done by Nicholas. He didn't provide any of the images to be tested. Somebody that's a critic of his said, well, I'll take his image. Maybe they took it from his book, for all I know. He did not give them a high-quality image to check. And they ran it through this VP image analyzer, and Nicholas knows about this technology, and he says you have to have a skilled operator. You have to tweak it. You don't just put it on like a Xerox machine and get it. So a lot of it has to do with how skilled and what kind of settings that you use in terms of getting it, but it definitely passes that test. When I showed this to Nicholas, he hadn't seen the critique. On the right is the Turin shroud, on the left is yours. He said, well, looks pretty good to me. It's a 3D image relief, and the nose is higher and the beard is kind of coming out and so forth. Plus, it's not the same image. So here's his hypothesis. We're almost done here. He built a room. Wasn't as nice as this brick room here, but it's just showing you. And he hung his linen shroud, and he used a plaster model of a human. He made it pretty much like the shroud so people wouldn't say, oh, that doesn't look like the shroud. And over a period of days, the sun passed and did all of the arc. It depends on your longitude and latitude in terms of exactly what it's going to be. He's in South Africa, so that's much different than it would be in Europe. But the process is clear what happens. Here's his actual room. Here's his easel with the linen. Here's the pinhole. Dark room, you can have a candle that doesn't affect anything, just like in a dark room. And this is what he used. And here is his image that he tried to reproduce. And there's what he got. Well, I'm telling you, when I saw that, I contacted him. I said, Dr. Allen, you got to tell me everything. I don't know why people are criticizing you. And the criticisms they make are just so lame. Like, well, look, this is very light here and here, and the shroud isn't like that. Well, this is a painted plaster statue. It's not going to be exactly the same. Do you want him to get a dead person to try it? So he has to think, what did the creator of the shroud use? Cadavers are readily available. Did he actually use a cadaver? Possibly. And notice, hair hanging down because it's suspended up. Tied the hands to keep them in place like that. If it was a cadaver, maybe by the thumbs because there's no thumbs. Shroud supporters say the reason there's no thumbs is if you put a nail through the wrist, the thumbs detract because it cuts a nerve. Well, another reason there's no thumbs is that's holding the hands across the body of, I think it's most likely that a cadaver was used. Now, can you tell which is which, Derek?
Yes, but that's because I know.
But isn't it just by the looks of the figure? What about the technique? Pretty close, huh?
Yeah, it's pretty close.
It's 3D, and this is the one, let's see, start from the left. That's his negative, and then go to his positive. Yes, it's shiny and more defined, right?
Right.
But
I was going to ask you, what wouldn't, 800 years fade even though I know this was done through the sun, wouldn't you think quite a bit of time going by?
I would think something fading might take place, but to me, this is how it was done. Now, what was used, exactly the technique, I'm just talking about the basic hypothesis.
Yeah.
Then the blood was applied manually and very carefully, just very discreetly, making all the wounds that we saw up and down and so forth. And the blood has been analyzed. It is blood. It has hemoglobin and so forth, but it's got kind of an iron ochre added to keep it red so it didn't turn black. You can experiment with blood, and Alan has done that to show. It also bleaches any part of the image under it. And so it looks like the blood was there first and then the image next, but it's actually the reverse because blood bleaches. And he's also shown that. That's one of the objections. Shroud advocates of this authenticity idea of Jesus will say, well, the blood couldn't have been added later because it's actually on the body. It's from the body, and it's actual blood touching the body, whereas the image wasn't touching the body. That's by radiation. It's actually the other way around. Okay. So here are some observations and critiques. These are all the things that people say. I've already gone over most of these. Photography not invented until 1839, 500 years after the creation of the Leary cloth. So it couldn't be. Well, you're right. It's not a photograph. Nobody thought of it as a photograph, but somebody figured out, look, the maker of it didn't know it was going to give that positive image. Remember? The maker didn't know that. He just thought, wow, if I take a piece of linen and use the sun and treat it right, it's going to give this nice scorched image to a crucified man, and I'll put all the characteristics that I believe that a crucified man would have, front and back. You see the idea?
So just to be safe on number one, you're saying it's anachronistic because we didn't have that negative image till photography did come up and say, hey, look at the negative now. We're all viewing the negative, pretending
exactly, and nobody seems to get that. Everybody says, well, photography would have been invented 500. No, it wouldn't, because nobody thought it. They didn't know. All they ever saw was the faint scorch image.
Right.
You said, okay, well, that's like a photograph. That's like a photograph. Are you kidding? Nobody knew the word photograph.
Right.
So, I don't know why people can't get this. Allen's image has bright spots and straight edges. Yeah, it was made from a painted statue. I mean, come on. The blood is under the image, not applied afterwards. Well, actually, it isn't. It's after the image was applied, and it's bleach. It bleaches the image underneath. Allen's image fails the VP8 test. I thought it passed it pretty well. And it's never been done, but he never turned in an image, as I said, and said, test this with the VP8. He should probably do that. No trace of silver compounds on the Turin shroud. Well, that's because they wash off with the urine, just completely. 99.99% wash off. And Ellen's image is not identical to the Turin image. Well, part of that's the region, Europe versus South Africa, and the angle of the sun, and the time of year, and the climate, and the altitude. But also it's not identical because he didn't have the same model or corpse. He thinks it was a corpse. I think it was too. So these are all these authenticity claims that I'm not going to go over because we've been going now, I haven't timed it, but quite a while. But if you want a response to all of these things, some of them I've touched on, like, oh, there's first century pollen only native to Jerusalem on the shroud. There's limestone dust on the shroud that's only found in Jerusalem. The Oviedo's bloodstains match the shroud. Well, you saw the cloth. It's AB blood, and it's red because of trauma and all of this. So, oh, Masada barrel shrouds match the weave. There are no Masada barrel shrouds. I don't know what people are talking about. There's Masada textiles, and I've been very involved, as you know, Derek. I took you there and showed you in the cave where the skeletons were found. I've published all about them. I've DNA tested several of them. So how am I going to cover all of this? Because it would take another hour or more. Hugh Ferry, Shroud Skeptic. Again, I made an easy URL, jamestabor.com/Ferry Shroud, F-A-R-E-Y Shroud. You don't have to put caps. That will take you to his video where he goes over with a YouTube host all of these objections and covers them all in great detail. And Hugh is just wonderful at this. Now, he doesn't agree with Alan, which I like. He thinks it was painted somehow. And everybody, oh, yeah, but how could you do that? And I actually don't understand how he thinks that, but he doesn't agree with Alan on how it was made. But he thinks all of these claims are questionable. So finally, thanks to Nicholas Allen and Hugh Ferry, they helped me both through emails. I haven't talked to them. And you've got these links. This is where I started. If you want to know about resurrection, and if you want to know about finding the shroud, Roman crucifixion, here's Allen's full presentation, and here's Ferry's full presentation with Joe Brock. Really great presentation. So that might be it. Yeah, that's it, Derek. So
awesome.
There you go.
Yeah, Andrea Nicolati, I think, also is in the line of thinking that it was painted. In his book, he covers the history, of course, like you talked about, goes through this, but also that there were many shrouds. And also there's another scholar, Andrew Casper, who covers the history and stuff. And he actually, I posted this on Twitter, and he's like, I feel left out, because
I saw your interview with him, and I think I wrote him an email, but I didn't hear back. He might not have gotten it. I have emails going to junk mail now all the time. I have to check my junk mail every day. I mean, important emails are going to junk mail. So I'm gonna go get my crucifixion nail.
Okay.
And then I'm gonna do my little demo that I did at the end of my demo, about these two aren't the same. Little surprise demo that I'm gonna do for you. So
then we'll do super chats after that, if that's cool with you. Just to wrap things up. But go ahead and run and do that if you want, and I'll take over for a minute.
Okay, how do I
I could just do this.
Yeah, just shut off my camera for a minute. Yeah.
Cool. All right. What did you think, ladies and gentlemen? I see we got some critics in the chat. We got some critics in both directions. Critics of its authenticity, critics of what James just said. Some people so pissed off that they have to make accusations. As I said earlier, I'm persuaded when you believe, we don't really choose our beliefs. Oftentimes they're just things that we hold internally, and it's not easy to let go. But when you believe something, and this somehow ties into the fabric of your entire worldview, that you need this thing to be authentic, you need this thing to be real, it's very difficult, when you're confronted with evidence that might be contrary to that kind of conclusion. And I've seen a lot of people make a lot out of this, because at the end of the day, here's my personal skeptical argument. If it's not true, it doesn't do anything to your claim about Jesus not rising from the dead. But there's a lot of people who defend it on that level as if it is. So we'd have to go to a different battleground to argue whether or not Jesus rose from the dead, a different arena, whether it's philosophical or historical or whatever you want to do, literary. But they fight this thing so bad. They need this thing to be really the first century cloth, the shroud of Jesus. And I think to myself, if it's just historically humans are making up stuff, we had 4 skins of Peter, we had, the true cross pieces of the wood, the list goes on and on. And if that's the case, why is it not the case they also did this with shrouds? Well, Derek, it doesn't debunk that there was an authentic one. Okay, we're looking at the history. We're looking at a modern invention that's using the sun. To me, it seems like a no-brainer. Humans want this. They're being artistic. We had a lot of art by many Christians who find this sacred. Anyway, so I think our professor is back, Dr. Tabor. Hey, I'm just trying
I stumbled around a lot. I had 2 other Zoom meetings today. I'm kind of tired, but I hope it was clear. So 2 things I want show and tell. First, I learned this from Hugh Ferry, and I thought it was pretty cool. He said, watch this. Can you see my technique? I rolled up a paper ball. Whoa, that is so different. Look at that. I got to see where there. I got to.
Let me make you full screen.
Yeah, there you go. See? Paper ball. Look at all those. Now, let me try it again. I'm going to use the same technique. It's similar, but boy, it's got this one. Look, this has differences the way it curves. Look,
yep.
So this could not be the same technique. You did something different. Hugh just made that point. He just to say, but it's kind of. I've heard people say. Barry Schwartz said this. The edges look sharper and they're not as rounded. Well, it's a plaster cast. He didn't go and get a body. Okay. Right. And I don't know if the body was mutilated to form this. I don't know who made it. Some of that could have been painted. It appears that the blood was painted on later. And I want to say, thank God. So it might not have been a mutilated body, but people will say, the nose is broken. People have even said there are coins of Pontius Pilate on the eyes. Well, you go look at the eyes and you zoom in all you want. And first of all, there are no coins, and most of the shroud experts who even support the idea don't think there are coins on the eyes. But people come up with all these things.
Mm-hmm.
And the other thing that I went downstairs for is this is, in fact, a crucifixion nail for the heel. It's a real thing. And this was found at Pilate's judgment seat on the western wall of the city at the Praetorium. It's the southern end of Herod's palace in the excavations there in the 1970s. And we're publishing that, Shimon Gibson and I and Rafi Lewis and our team, along with 2 other volumes on Mount Zion. And you can come back, Derek. So I just wanted people to see it's very sharp, and it goes to the heel, and you can see how that would support the weight of a body driven in. And we have those 3 examples. So yeah, you're exactly right. I heard you talking a little bit as I walked away, and then I couldn't hear you downstairs. But it's all, if you believe something, you can always say, oh, well, but it could be this or that. And that's what happens. Like, yeah, you found a shroud, but maybe they went to the temple and bought a piece of cloth and it wasn't even a shroud. I've heard that. Or maybe Joseph had a shroud. Well, wait, the Bible says he bought it. Well, maybe he bought it like a month ago. And maybe he bought it for his family, on and on and on. You can just go. And, his didn't have a headpiece, or this idea of a cloth on the face of Jesus as they took him down from the cross. It would be all smeared and blotted. Can you imagine? And it would be full of drips and there's no record of anything like that. And it's all to get around the idea that John 20 says there are 2 pieces. And we find the only 1st century burial shroud in Jerusalem, and it has 2 pieces separate, right?
Right.
So it's like, yeah, but, and I don't know what people are going to say about the wrist, because most of my colleagues probably do think nails were through the wrist. I mean, I thought it for years, and they haven't kept up with Israel Hershkovitz at Tel Aviv and what he said about the nails in the hands. But I can tell you this, if we've got 2 individuals that did have the nails in the hands. So, and the nails have been tested, and they do have, to put it bluntly, flesh material in them still.
Right.
This one has not been used, thankfully. I wouldn't be showing it around like that. So, but it was at Pilate's judgment seat at the Praetorium in Jerusalem.
Actually, I found a tile or a piece of a mosaic that from that location when we went there. Yeah, and it wasn't rounded out like yours, or was it yours, or was it?
Well, I hope you didn't steal it, Derek, because I can have you arrested for that.
I have no clue what you're talking about. My wife has.
That's people are allowed to pick up little sherds and tessera.
Yeah.
They're called tessera. I mean,
I'll say this too. Coming at this, like, obviously, I would do this for Islam. I would do this for Judaism. I'd do this for any religious system that is in the world. And I would approach this stuff as skeptical. And if someone gave me an option between a radiated, miraculous, somehow imprint of a human body that is somehow due to deity essence or something that like shone light and created this image, and all the data we're finding from positive evidence of 2 shroud type burials, we have no evidence of a single shroud covering the entire body from the 1st century. We have evidence of people claiming it's a fake in the 13th, 14th century. And there is a modern replica based on not identical exactly, who knows what they did exactly when they made the actual shroud that we call the Shroud of Turin.
The method.
The method. Yeah. And it's so similar, at least. It's not identical, but it's so close. I think to myself, you have 2 options. And I want to reverse this psychologically for the viewer who might be the believer. And that is, if we found the Shroud of Muhammad, you wouldn't bat an eye. You'd be singing Kumbaya with me going, yeah, come on. He didn't radiate it, because they don't believe he's the prophet. They don't believe he's divine. And I guess what I'm getting at is, I think this does boil down to something psychological, and this does boil down to something else, because when we can replicate almost to a T what we're finding in this ancient relic, it's another excuse comes up. It's always going to be something. I saw someone in the chat go, okay, well, show me the actual, where is the lab Where is the data historically showing how they did this back then? And if it was done back then, you don't think this would have gone viral? They wouldn't have gone around and screamed this in the streets,
Well,
and
you see
everyone would
the
have
flaw
known?
there? A faint image on a piece of linen was no big deal. It was
Right.
ethereal and interesting. Nobody was seeing the photograph. Why can't people get that? So he says, why wouldn't they? Where's the lab? What do you mean the lab? It's a room, a hut with a hole and the
Right.
sun and an image. What do you mean the lab?
I mean, they were artistically.
Nobody gets the point. You got it right away. Nobody else gets it. Until 1898, nobody saw what people are saying. How do you explain that? Nobody saw
Right.
it. So
It's like if I can use another example outside of Christianity, because this is a sacred area for many. When you go to ancient Egypt, a lot of these sculptures, they'll say they're symmetrically perfect down to the 0.00001 of a degree on both sides of the face. It's symmetrical. Therefore, they had to have ancient modern technology.
yes.
And they give all these arguments, right? When I talk to Egyptologists and others, they're like, the math there, you can make this fit when you're trying to look for something to make this match. But basically what they're saying is there was no necessary modern technology in order to sculpt the face that we find, whether it's Hellenistic, whether it's ancient Egyptian or whatnot. They're approaching it with this kind of standard of like, it must be this. There's no way to explain it apart from modern machinery or some miracle or something.
Well, what were some of the questions in the chat that I could address maybe?
We'll get super chats.
Okay.
And then I just wanted to make a few comments. I was going to.
Oh yeah, that's fine. Yeah. No, you brought up one. You brought up one, so I was just wondering. But does everyone get this? Should I repeat it again? If I scorched my shirt with an iron, and you never heard of an iron, and I hold it up and I say, "Look at that! It's got the point and it's got those holes. How could that be made?" Take it to a caveman or something, how could that be made? They're not seeing a photograph, but if it was an image of a face, be like, the black and white, the positive image, you'd be like, wow, that can't be painted on. It's a photograph. Well, it is a photograph because that's what a photograph is, but it's only the process of ultraviolet light marking linen. Just go get some linen, wash it. You got to wash out the starch and the bleach. You can do it yourself. Get a piece of linen, take a glass plate, draw some little image you want, do a Star of David, do a cross, do whatever. Make it really fancy, okay? Put it in the sun for a day or two. Cover it where it doesn't rain at night or whatever. And put it up and you'll have your image.
I have one more image I need to show because there's no way to explain this. First of all, two images. One is here. Jesus has appeared in a tree stump, and this can only be explained miraculously. Just making that very clear that's the only way to explain this. There's no other way.
Well, and you wonder, why does he have long hair and look like our Jesus? Mm-hmm.
It's got to be miracle.
Last one. Do you have the fried egg one and all those, some of those others?
I didn't bring all those. I just downloaded two of them real quick here. Here's the other one. We know this cannot. Miracle. Jesus is on the toast. And we look at come on. He's got that, that early magician Jesus with the wand. That looks closer to the older version of Jesus in art. Might be more authentic. So I'm just being silly here. So,
yeah.
Okay.
And those kind of things are interesting. They occur in nature. This actually is much more purposeful. So the real question, remember, the whole challenge is no one can reproduce this image or explain how it was made. That's the challenge.
I think you've met that criteria.
Dr. Allen, and I give him credit, has explained it, all 10 criteria, and shown how it was made. And the only thing that's not exactly the same, he would have to go to France. He'd have to know the time of year and the altitude where it was made. in terms of the sun, and have to have clear sun. And he would have to probably use a real body, which he's not going to do. And then you would get something really, really close if the body looks something like that body. So all you can do is use an image. So
couple supers, and then we'll wrap things up. This has been a blast. Doc Ploromanot, thank you for the super chat.
One of my favorite people. He always comes.
Right? If no first century halakhic precedent exists for preserving blood on the corpse of a Zadok, is the shroud actually a polemic against Jewish purity law retroactively justified?
I don't think so. You mean by people maybe saying, "Oh, let's put blood"? I don't follow exactly. What do you think he means by that?
I'm not, Doc. If you're here,
like,
clarify.
He's saying a polemic against Jewish purity law, like, oh, because there could be blood. You don't preserve it, though. I guess what he's saying. You would wash the body. Look, here's what happened. Is if you're going to take the accounts we have, here's what happened. Go with my theory. You're on the Mount of Olives, or anywhere, but you're on the Mount of Olives. It's the place of Roman crucifixion. It's called Golgotha, the place of the skull. The legend is that Goliath's skull is buried there. That's one of the possibilities for the name. And the Romans are crucifying. Joseph of Arimathea goes, and he takes the body. He has a linen cloth. He takes the body down, wraps it up, and it will be totally bloodied and smeared. He's not going to carry it naked to the tomb. The tomb's not right there. It's a little ways away, because it says near the place was a garden, and in the garden was an unused tomb. It's not his tomb. It's very clear if you're going to go by the text. Now, if you don't think anything's right in the Bible, then we can't even talk about it. Or if you think everything's right, then it's his tomb because of one word in Greek that Matthew added. But I think your viewers are past that. So then what happened? Well, just go by logic. You block the body up so that jackals won't be gnawing on the face and body of your Rebbe, your teacher, your rabbi, over the holiday. Early Sunday morning, you go, Mary Magdalene, and they've already moved him. Of course they've moved him. What are they going to, why don't we wait another day and let him rot more? Of course they've moved him. And where did they move him? To the estate of Joseph of Arimathea, wherever that was. In my video, I show Condor's map from the 19th century. He's the great British explorer. And guess where he has Arimathea? Just south of Jerusalem, at the place we now call Talpiot. Puts it on the map. He didn't know about Talpiot. That's a modern name for a district. I took you to the tomb, Derek.
Yep. Is
it the tomb? Very possibly. It's actually an estate. There are 3 tombs. There's a cistern. It's a very wealthy estate. But it doesn't matter if that's it or not. He took him to another place. Jody Magnus, Amos Kloner, 2 people that are very skeptical of the Talpiot tomb to the point of being almost, let's just say they have very strong views against my view. Mm-hmm. But you know what they both say? They're Jewish. Why is the tomb, the Church of the Holy Sepulchre tomb, empty? There's nobody in there. Christians, he was raised. Jews, he was moved. Right? Kloner says this in his article on a Rolling Stone in Bar Magazine. He says, well, obviously this was he thinks it's the place. I don't think it's the place, but that doesn't matter. But he says, but obviously he's not there. So he was reburied and given a proper burial. Now, this could be the point of Doc. You do not, they're just going to leave him in that bloodied shroud? And just walk away? No, they're going to wash the body. They're going to clean the body. They're going to ritually prepare it for burial in Jewish tradition. And there will be another shroud then that would be the shroud of, quote, the resurrection, if it existed, not this shroud, you see? Mm-hmm. So you got to have 2 shrouds. You got to have 2 tombs if you're going to go with this idea. So
Thank you. I
You
fish in a
understand?
tide. Thank you for the super chat. Cannot wait for the next class, Dr. Tabor.
Thanks. We'll figure out what it's on. So
Make sure you go and sign up for his course. He's doing Zoom meetings. We've got so much stuff we're working on. Dr. Tabor hangs out and does actual classes with you, where I think you take questions and stuff, correct?
oh yeah, we usually meet. We're supposed to meet for 2 hours, but we usually go 3. So
yeah.
they're a great group. Now we finished the Mark Zooms, but they're all recorded, and half the people can't come every time anyway.
Of course.
But they get to watch everything, and it's all recorded. And we've got 3 courses. We've got Jesus and the Dead Sea Scrolls, and we've got a course on the historical Paul, and we've got this Mark course. But the reason we're highlighting the Mark course is because that is our earliest record of what happened. And as you saw, it doesn't say, for example, that it's Joseph of Arimathea's tomb. So
right. By the way, you'll own it for life as well. High quality lectures. And then you also have the Zoom meetings and the Hangout and all sorts of cool.
And I have a whole syllabus too. You don't just watch lectures. You get this big, thick thing with all these studies and articles and outlines and so forth.
I love it. Love it. Thank you so much for the super chat. I fish. Adam S. Did Joseph, the stepfather of Jesus, planted the tree Jesus was crucified on?
Is that a Glastonbury legend or something?
It sounds like it.
Oh, that's Joseph the stepfather. Okay, not Joseph Arimathea. Yeah. I'll tell you what, on all these legends that you hear, my students bring them up all the time. Wasn't Joseph of Arimathea the uncle of Mary because her father's brother was Joseph and so forth? I always say to them the same thing. Give me the earliest source for that idea. Let's start with that. Go find the earliest source. You know what it almost always is? It's a 14th century legend, or it's a 13th century legend, or it's a 16th century legend. It's never like, oh, it's a first century text that they recently found on papyri. You see what I'm saying?
Right.
So yeah, Acts of Pilate and supposedly, let's see, what are some of the craziest ones? Stuff by Nicodemus has been written. Fake Gospels, the Evangelium of James about little Mary running around in the temple at age 12, the Vestal Virgin, all those things. All that stuff does start circulating in the 2nd and 3rd centuries, but they don't even feel like the earlier texts that we have. And so I guess I'm conservative by many measures, in the sense that I think Paul wrote at least the early 7 letters. I think they reflect the culture of the time. I think they're first person, and they're very helpful because he says things like, I went and saw James, the brother of Jesus. So that helps to begin to imagine a bit more about James. He's clearly in charge. He's mentioned first, the pillars of the church. And even the book of Acts has James making the decision, but it doesn't even say he's his brother. Have you ever noticed you're reading Acts and you come to chapter 15 and everybody's arguing, you got 2 factions split. Should Gentiles have to convert to Judaism? And then a guy named James stands up, gavel, my decision is. You go, who's he? Well, today we go, oh, that was James, the brother of Jesus, who took over leadership of the movement. But Luke doesn't tell you who that is. Luke never says James is the brother of Jesus. He only mentions him there in one earlier passage. When Peter gets out of prison, go tell James and the brothers. James who? Who's James and the brothers I need to tell? Who is James? Say, well, he's a brother of Jesus. Go to Luke, the Gospel of Luke, not Acts. Does Luke name the brothers when he gets to Mark 6, verse 3? Nope. Comes to that passage. Are not these his brothers, James, Joseph, Simon, and Jude? Luke takes that out. He doesn't want to emphasize the family. because now it's Paul is his hero, and it's the heavenly family that counts, not the earthly family. But he still has to mention James. I remember growing up wondering, James who? Why didn't I ask? I should have asked my James who? Who's James?
Anyway, yeah, thank you. Wade Rogers, thank you for the super chat. Dr. Tabor, love your work. The church has cranked out so many fake relics, like pieces of the cross or the foreskin of Jesus. You could fill an entire stadium with them. Saw Jesus in my toast once. That's kind of the joke I was bringing up earlier.
Yeah, they're pretty. Some of them are pretty gross. Fingernails, Mary's milk. Joseph's last breath, the father Joseph, in a bottle. Like as he died. Breath. As he died, they held a bottle to his mouth and he breathed in it and they corked it up, and it's Joseph, husband of Mary, his breath.
Interesting.
It's very strange stuff.
Wade, thank you so much. Searching Deeper said, I find it unlikely that humans would have done nothing with a technological breakthrough like this. Use it once only, they would have bragged about it and we would have known about it. How many times
do I have to make this point? I don't understand why Searching Deeper is not getting this.
I think this was given to me before you made the final. This was sent in
I said it all the way through, though. Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Okay, sorry.
Yeah.
Okay, I apologize. Yeah.
So you're just repeating.
I think he or she then would understand it now. Okay.
Yeah.
No, it isn't. Nobody's ever seen the photograph till 1898. Okay.
Yeah. And then I Fish in a Tie, thank you for that super chat. Is the Shroud Tomb DNA available to non-Patreons?
Let's see. The Shroud DNA. Yeah, I think that was all published in our book. I got it here. The Jesus Discovery. I believe we published it. Yeah, we did. Somebody wants to compare their DNA, maybe, huh? Let me just hold this up. Yeah. Here we go. I believe this has the publication of it. The Jesus Discovery. Now, keep in mind it's mitochondrial. So it's just the mothers. It's not the fathers, which brings me to another point, and I can announce it to non-patrons because I'm pretty well making it public very soon. We're starting a project, a DNA project, to take the debris out of the bottom of any ossuary. Look at any ossuary. Do you have time for me to show you one? Just a typical ossuary, what I'm talking about?
Yeah.
Okay. I think
are you needing to share your screen or?
Yeah, either that or I could text it to you. How do I share? If I open it, can I just share an image on the screen? Yeah, I think I can. Hold on.
I think so.
Mm-hmm. Let me find a good one. Okay.
And if you want to send it to me, you could do that too. And
okay. So let me go to I don't use this program much, but I think image file. Yeah, I can do that. Okay.
By the way, Origins TV is going hard on the pro, like totally, bringing up sources about other face cloths and stuff and things like that. That's why I do recommend.
And what is he arguing?
Just pro for the, the shroud, the kind of apologetic for this authenticity of the shroud, that it can't be replicated. The example you brought up earlier, nothing, didn't make a dent.
He's not impressed with that. Even though
of course. I don't think there's a lot of people are never going to be impressed by anything. I don't think. Even if you made a replica that was identical, they'd just be like, well, there's no way they could have done it back then or something,
I don't understand that, actually. If I could sit down with this person, I don't know if he drinks beer or something, over a proverbial beer, I think it would be pretty clear. Okay, there.
I see it.
Normally, I'm not going to tell you whose ossuary this is, but it is somebody you know well. If you look at an ossuary, and this one's been cleaned and everything, it's on display. You look in any ossuary, this is what it looks like. This is a top view. There's just some piece of something in the bottom, that black thing. Don't worry about that. I'd call it debris or dirt. So there's this new thing called dirt archaeology. Okay. So what is dirt archaeology? It's taking the debris, even out of a cave. Let's say you have a prehistoric cave and there have been skeletal burials. You can actually take the soil around the cave and different parts of the cave, and it's called dirt archaeology. It's done at Tel Aviv at the Sloan Institute. And we've already tried it, and you get really good DNA. The DNA we did in 2005 is so out of date now. It could only get mitochondrial, that's the mother, very fragmented, and just 2 or 3 positions on the genome. Now there's new generation sequencing DNA that's enhanced probably 100 times better than that. You can sometimes get the whole genome or a lot of it, depending. Now, prehistoric, it's more of a problem. But recently, did you see the story about the tooth?
No.
And it was, I believe, 4,000 years old, and they got the complete record of the person from inside a tooth because it's protected. So, what we're going to do, get rid of the picture now, and I'll talk again. Here's what we're going to do. We're going to begin to go to select ossuaries and sample them. I want to start with the Tomb of the Shroud because I was involved in that, and we'll do those ossuaries. They're at the Israel storage, and they all have that debris in them. And we'll get a DNA, we have in that article I put up a preliminary old DNA profile of some of the bones that were there, but we gave the bones to the Orthodox for reburial. We don't keep the bones. You don't do that out of respect for Jewish death. You turn all the material over, but that dirt, that debris, it's not bones, but it has organic material. The body's been in there and it seeps into the limestone, and the rabbis don't object to this. Why? Because you're identifying and honoring the dead. You see, you just identify them. Maybe an ossuary doesn't have a name, and we're not going to get a name from the DNA, of course. But what if we find out, oh, this is the sister of Salome in the other ossuary in the tomb that has the name, you see?
Yeah, or someone related to Caiaphas, or someone we know.
Yeah, exactly. And we've already tried it on 2, and we have a match with the Masada skeleton and somebody, and the Antigonus skeleton, which means it's Hesperian. It's a priestly. So we're going to do that. Then I want to do ossuaries that have the word Kohen or Ha-Kohen, priest, right, in Hebrew. It'll say so-and-so and so-and-so, Ha-Kohen. If it's Ha-Kohen, it's probably the high priest, like Theophilus. There's a priest named Theophilus, son of Annas. We have his ossuary. Well, why aren't we doing Theophilus' DNA? So we're going to. Because people said, well, the bones are turned over and we can't do it, but we're going to do it with the debris. So we want, and this will be public. The person asks, this will be a public database. It will be joined in with other public databases all over the world where people are testing DNA, be part of a scientific project. Now, if we had enough time and money and effort, theoretically, we could do all of the tombs in Jerusalem of the Herodian period. There are 1,000 tombs that have been uncovered, and probably 3,000 to 6,000 ossuaries, because a lot of them in private hands. But let's say we could do 300 identifiable ossuaries. They're not all inscribed. You could finally set up a grid,
right,
and say the ancient population that lived in Jerusalem from 30 BC to 70, that's 100 years, nice period. For 100 years, all through the time of Jesus, every other person Hillel, Shammai, whoever you like, Josephus, okay, and we would find I think we're going to find all kinds of intermarriage and relationships is what we're going to find.
That'd be cool.
But won't that be interesting?
Oh, yeah.
And you could have all these people going, oh my God, I'm related to.
Yeah, yeah. That's my great grandpa. You know what I mean? Yeah. Look, James, you have been doing great work. You're a wonderful scholar. There's so much material you cover on your YouTube channel. I hope people will take the course. Thank you for the super chats and everyone who's taken an interest in this, even the critics who have been respectful. They're just bringing their punches, James, you're awesome. I really appreciate your friendship, your time of coming and presenting this and helping people understand. I did not realize all of this till I came across your video, and I didn't know Nicholas Allen. I saw his video, but I didn't fully watch the whole thing that Jacob did. And so you really made me go, whoa, this is interesting, because I've done this before and they said, no, they thought it was painted of some sort. This is a different, interesting take. And I thought, wonderful. I'm glad someone's
the
bringing.
problem with the painted is it would be really hard to paint a negative. Really hard.
Yeah.
I'm not sure what, and there would be paint pigment on the shroud, and there isn't any. I mean, whatever is used to quote paint it. But hey, Hugh Ferry thinks it was painted, and as you saw, I respect him immensely. And you've got to watch his video. He is so delightful. He's funny, and he has a chalkboard, and he's entertaining. He's the guy that gave me the paper trick. You got to watch his video. I have it there on the slide. It's just jamestabor.com / would I say fairy video or something. So
yeah, I would say people need to just go to your blog. All this can be found on your website, jamestabor.com. And
my YouTube channel has the most. Yeah. So
yeah, let me just
look at that. Look, while we're there, go back up to that Mark thing right there. Don't open it. Just read. Is Mark the earliest surviving Jewish text after the Jerusalem temple was destroyed? This is new. Derek doesn't even know this shit.
No, I haven't looked at it.
But in this video, there's a link to the video. I argue, and it's a recent view of mine, and I didn't even know it when I made the Mark course. I didn't hold this view, that Mark is the earliest surviving text after the destruction of Jerusalem, addressing what do we do without the temple. And it's
so
not
it's in the vein of
Jesus is in heaven. Why would we need a temple? No, it's like, what do you do about purity laws? How do we observe the Sabbath? It addresses halakhic Jewish questions of observance. What's the great commandment? What about the temple? What about the sacrifices? And I go through and I give 7 points that Mark makes that are all major points, not tiny points, big points. To say in effect, if you want to follow the God of Israel with no temple and no sacrifice, what do you do? Now, it's written for believers in Jesus, of course. But see what you think of that. It's short. It's 45 minutes. See what you think of that video. It's doing really well on my channel. People are, and the longer other one is right next there. See, right now, is this the face?
Right here.
That's the same slides, but I go on and on about them for more time than I did on
Go sign up for the course. Go check out his blog, free to sign up, get the newsletters, be updated on the latest, greatest, and subscribe to his YouTube channel. Any final words from you, James?
No, I do hope the people that I do notice on my channel too, everybody's bringing up all these things. Oh, Dr. Tabor doesn't even know that they found 1st century pollen on the shroud. Yes, I know all about that claim, and no, they did not. And it can all be addressed, is what I'm saying. Or he doesn't know this. I don't know everything, but I did read my first book on the shroud in 1970. Does that give me a little bit of time to have thought about the shroud? So how many years is that? 55 years ago. So, I haven't made it an intense study because this is technical, but I was involved in the only discovery of a 1st century burial shroud. And I've also done this work on crucifixion nails and crucifixion with Simca Jacobovici. And he's the one who had these, when I say we had these tested, Simca is the one who did it. I, of course, was part of it and encouraged it. But so I feel like I've been pulled into it. I didn't just randomly pick this. I think I'll just study the Shroud of Turin. I'm thinking crucifixion, burial shroud, tombs. I mean, those are the things I've worked on now for all these years. So
yeah.
seems to
Well,
fit.
no matter what, if you believe it, you're going to just believe it. And I can see it no matter what. There's going to be people who are going to do that. And I really appreciate your time. Thank you so much, James.
And I don't go for this skeptic believer thing, because these labels, people, Tabor's a skeptic. No, I'm James Tabor. I'm a scholar, and I gave you my reasons for thinking it's medieval. I don't need a label.
Yeah.
You say, well, Derek's skeptical on everything. No, he's not. He's not skeptical on Alan's theory. He thought it was pretty impressive. So
because it's
these labels, how about
it's tangible. It's tangible. It's observable. It's repeatable. It's not requiring something that I just not. It's ordinary. It doesn't demand me make a leap of. I have two options. A Jewish guy from the first century literally zapped it with miraculous light through the cloth, which we have something very close, almost not identical, but very similar with a modern, replication of this light beam from the sun in a dark room. And I'm thinking to myself, which one's more likely? Now, this doesn't bat an eye for someone who already has that whole furniture in their mind. But if we applied this to Buddha or Jesus or Krishna, I'm not Jesus, but Muhammad, Krishna, or any other character, that would be very quickly dismissed or easily acceptable. Mm-hmm. And I'm just saying that's how I view it with Christianity. For me, it's not a problem for me to say what's more plausible to me is that this is somehow another relic among thousands of relics that are sacred, but are produced by the church for whatever the reason may be at the time. It may be. Right.
And we don't know the motives of the person who did it. Maybe the person did it to help people to more deeply appreciate the sufferings of Jesus.
Yeah,
I think that's. I'm going to fool everybody and make them. He might not even have claimed it was the burial shroud. He might have said, if I take a body, and I'm not going to crucify the body, but then I paint and I make an image because I figured out the sun can make images on linen. That's not a big discovery. Look at your curtains. Okay.
Right.
The sun can make images on cloth, and I figure out how to fix it and how to do it, project it. And then I add all this. What if he's doing this very piously?
Yeah, I think they are. I don't think anyone.
This will help people to look and imagine, because we know about the nails and the feet and the suffering and the crown of thorns. Obviously, he intended it to represent Jesus, but we don't know who it is, and we don't know what his motives were.
Yeah,
and I disagree with one thing you said. You said it's not identical. Yes and no. The technique, I think, is identical.
Right.
I would argue that. The result isn't, because you started with a plaster model in a different latitude and longitude, and you didn't use a corpse. But that's like, two photos aren't identical if they're taken.
That's all I mean by it. Yeah, I don't. Yeah, I'm saying they're not Xerox.
Look again at the images. You can look at my video again, or you can. Find some of Alan's work. It's all over the place. And the method, I think, has been found. Now, the main critique of it is from Barry Schwartz, who's now passed away. He was a great guy, wonderful guy. He was Jewish, and he did believe the shroud was formed by either we couldn't explain it, or maybe he even believed it was the resurrection, but I'm not sure. I don't know his personal life and beliefs, but he gives a critique of Alan's photos, and it's online. You can find it. Schwartz reacts to Alan's theory, and he's a photographer, but all the criticisms that he makes are just, it's like the things I say, oh, the nose is too bright, or it curves differently. And any two negatives are going to be a little bit different, right? But is the process the same? Yes. I think this is the process. I think.
Interesting.
At least it's a process that produces the same result. So, okay. Yeah. Thanks.
Yeah.
I hope it was useful for people.
Thank you so much, James. I really appreciate it. And
Thank you for having me.
like the video, share the video. Never forget, ladies and gentlemen, we are MythVision.
Son, do you want to know what the truth is? After this, there's no turning back. You take the blue pill and you wake up in your bed and believe whatever you want to. You take the red pill and you stay in Wonderland, and I show you just how deep the rabbit hole goes. Remember, all I'm offering is the truth, nothing more.